Hi everyone, and welcome to what I like to call the Real NK Talks. We used to have this show once a month talking about different issues that's in real estate, or bring industry experts talking about different ideas, facts in real estate market. This year, instead of calling it a webinar, what we're gonna call it is the Real NK Show. Today I got Pasha here. Pasha, thanks for coming.
Thank you very much for having me, Nima.
What we're gonna talk about this episode is garden suites. So this gentleman here is an expert in, he's an engineer by trade.
That's right.
He's an expert in doing legal basement apartments, garden suites, and laneway suites. And there's a difference in both concepts, but today what we're gonna talk about is the garden suites. So maybe just tell us the difference, first of all, between a laneway suite and a garden suite.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Pasha Pashandi. I'm from Concord Engineering. We're doing architectural and engineering consulting in the GTA and Toronto area. So very great point about the difference between garden suites and laneway suites and other type of detached accessory dwelling units. So in generic term, anytime you have a detached structure within your property, there are different names that you can call it. So in this case, if it's located in the back of the property, it goes by garden suites or coach houses or granny suites or in-law suites or whatever. But if it's located on the laneway, it goes by the name laneway suite. But the concept is the same. It is basically a detached ancillary or accessory dwelling unit located in the property as a secondary residence.
Right, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so that essentially turns the single-family residential into two single-family residential on one property.
Exactly.
Okay,
exactly.
So since we're in this topic, let's go about the benefits of it. What benefits does this whole concept bring to the cities?
Absolutely. There are lots of benefits with having a garden suites. But if you want to summarize them into 5 main categories, we can start by the extra income. So renting out a garden suite can provide additional income for the homeowners. In addition to that, you're adding to the living space. So you have additional living space within your property and basically maintaining the privacy of your home. So it's different than having a basement apartment, living and sharing a space or having common spaces with your tenants. It's completely separate, and it's got its own privacy. You can have your own backyard. They have their own backyard. And to basically top it off with the benefits, it's an increased value in your property.
Yeah.
You know better, but I think for garden suites, it's dollar to dollar added value. Depending on some locations, it's also might be even higher than that.
Yeah.
Right.
So just we're there. So the good thing about it is because you bring all the services directly to that unit. So you're gonna have water, sewage that are separate from the main property. Would you be able to meter them separately or no?
Yeah, absolutely. So the garden suites are non-severable. But you're sharing the services and utilities.
Okay.
But you can sub-meter them and smart meter them, so you can basically monitor their usage separately.
Okay. So
just going back to the benefits of a garden suite, in addition to increased property value, additional living space, extra income, it brings a really good point from 2 different perspectives. Affordability index. When we talk about affordability, you can look at it from the investor's point of view or the renters. So for renters, it provides greater options and affordability to basically rent a 2-bedroom unit versus a condominium unit, right? So you have your better options. You have more affordability to basically lock down a place with its own backyard, its own privacy, even 2-story building and all that. Also, if you're applying for a mortgage, if you're showing that this house, this property has a rental income, it will basically increase your affordability in terms of applying for a higher mortgage. Another point is increased density. I think that one main topic that we usually don't discuss that much is the urban sprawls and the densification of metropolitans, right? So in this case, one of the factors that City of Toronto could push this agenda and change this policy and zoning bylaw by basically highlighting the densification aspect of this program.
And that's the whole point that they kind of push it in Toronto, because just then densify the areas that have, let's say, like in or around Danforth. That's an ideal place to have a, let's say, garden street or a laneway, because you got the transit, you got all the amenities there.
Exactly. You get it's lighter on the infrastructure. It's cheaper for the cities, municipalities to basically utilize their existing services, right? And last but not least, age in place.
Yeah.
This type of structures or this type of dwelling provide opportunities for aging family to have their extended family or caregivers living with them, but not with them, basically, in a separate dwelling. So that's like a couple of the benefits.
Which is much better than having them in the basement.
Exactly.
Yeah. So see, that's, in my opinion, that's one of the biggest benefits, because when you have a basement, like the noise become an issue, people coming and going become an issue, and usually basements tend to have darker environment. Like not a lot of basements, especially in Toronto, have above ground windows or walkout basements, which cause an issue, because if you're living in an environment you don't have a lot of natural light, just kind of become depressed.
Absolutely. And it's even if you compare these new condominiums with the garden suites, you can have windows on 4 sides of the house instead of just one tunnel, type of window configuration.
So while we were talking about it, so let's talk about some numbers. So investing in garden suites. So let's say an average garden suite. Usually I feel like people would do either 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom, right?
Yes.
Or would people still go for like a bachelor suite still?
So it's basically, we get into the footprint restrictions and limitations, but generally speaking, if you're investing in a garden suite, it's better for maximizing your investment, right? So you can go up to 2 stories in a garden suite, and you can have like 65 square meters per floor.
Right.
So if you're just taking,
and that's the maximum.
That's the maximum. And there are some other factors depending on the lot coverage. So there's like a percentage of the total area, or
so 65 square meters or feet.
Square meters.
Meters.
Yeah. So it's like 650.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Per floor, right?
Per floor.
So we put down some numbers, like preliminary estimates. It's gonna cost around $300,000 to $400,000 for a 1,000 square feet garden suite unit, right?
Which is amazing.
Yeah, it's actually not bad, comparing to a 2-bedroom apartment. Yeah. How much a 2-bedroom condo goes for?
Because I think, we have the chart. So the chart we're looking at is, let's say, roughly a 2-bedroom garden suite is going to cost you about $350,000.
That's correct.
Whereas comparable 2-bedroom condo, I wouldn't call it 1,000 square foot, let's just say slightly even less, was probably going to cost you easily $800,000 anywhere in Toronto now.
Absolutely. And then how much would you rent them for?
So, I mean, easily $3,000 right now.
$3,000, and then it goes to the same point that you're paying $800,000 for $3,000 rental income versus $350,000 for getting the same rent, right?
And not to mention that it adds value to your property as well. You got the extra income, and the person probably renting it is going to be happier because, you got a backyard, you got more light, and overall also helps with the problem right now we have in the city, which is a lack of inventory for rentals.
Exactly.
As we saw in the last 6 months, because of the rising interest rate, we've seen rental rates shoot up, and not a lot of people can afford to buy right now because of the interest rates. But with that being said, solutions like this will solve the problem in 2 ways. 1, increase the rental pool. 2, increase the affordability.
Absolutely.
A lot of people that want to be in the city.
Yeah, that's correct.
So with that being said, let's say $300,000, and then we have some expenses, right? So
yeah, I think the main expense for a condominium is maintenance fees. But you don't have that in a garden suite. You're sharing a lot of the maintenance fees. For us, it's a house. It's got less maintenance fees overall, but you still have to put away some money for emergencies and all that stuff. So once you get put that into all consideration, you're coming up with 2 numbers: your monthly net operating income and your annual net operating income, right? So and then you see that the gap increases in that sense, right? And then what's the most important factor to consider when you're renting or investing for a rental capitalization rate, right?
Exactly.
So the capitalization rate for garden suites versus condo are almost 3 times higher.
Yeah.
Because the cost,
amazing.
Because the cost is much less.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, like we have the chart there, so you can see the difference. And any type of garden suite that you decide to do, I mean, you can reach out to your realtor and see how these numbers could change. Because if you have a smaller footprint that we're going to talk about, the requirements, let's say you're going to go with a bachelor suite or a 1-bedroom suite, you can see what the cost is and how much you're going to be earning compared to that.
But these numbers are very preliminary. So depending on the location, the finishing, depending on a lot of different factors. So this fluctuates, up and down. But you can do it in a way, design it in a way, have it functionally optimized in a way that you get the best, value
for it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So just to start off, like the smallest unit that you can build, let's say a bachelor unit, whatever it is, like what's the starting cost of some structure like that? Let's say a bachelor unit.
So if you let's just compare it with a legal basement unit,
apartment,
right?
Yeah.
So for a basement apartment, anything you go around like 700-800 square feet, it's going to cost you around $700,000 to $100,000, right? So it's $100 per square feet. So in comparison, for a garden suite, it's a little bit higher because you need to have a foundation. You basically built a new house,
right?
But in the small, it's like a tiny house,
right?
But it's got everything that you would have in a big house. So you need to have a foundation. You need to make sure the drainage is properly set. You have your landscaping, soft cost. So it's like a multiple factors playing, but overall the return on investment is so high that it's no brainer to basically go for it.
Let's talk about where people can actually expect to build stuff like this in Ontario.
Yeah, in Ontario. So in Ontario, they have basically the first municipality that permitted the usage and construction of garden suite is Toronto. Toronto is the busiest, most populated municipality in the GTA and in Ontario. So they're the pioneer of this concept. And this concept is not new. They've been doing it in California, in Europe, in a lot of places that there is a densification program, supply issues. The first solution to relieve that issue is basically allowing people to build more separate dwellings in their property.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that other municipalities will follow suit. City of Newmarket, Aurora, Richmond Hill, Vaughan, they're all basically commissioned a study plan to understand the benefits of having garden suites in their municipalities because it's going to be cheaper for them in terms of providing services and utilities to these by densifying their
because the infrastructure is already there.
Yeah,
and again, just to go back, why Ontario even looked at garden suites is to intensify areas that are already have a lack of supply and the services are already there. So to take advantage of more services, I mean, like you got all the servicing for the property, you got the amenities, and you got transit. So why not have more people take advantage of that rather than them having to go further into suburbs where the city has to make all the infrastructures again and expand it to those areas. So that's why this whole idea makes sense. And it would be the way of future for a lot of properties that are right now, I would say detached properties that are closer to the downtown core. Mm-hmm. And I feel like areas that we're going to see a lot of these happenings would be in or around Danforth. Yeah. In or around, I would say, Roncesvalles, a lot of these places that have detached properties that are very close to the subway.
Absolutely. And zoning bylaws, they vary from street to street. So it's important to understand the locations first because most of these requirements are location specific. So if you have some of the setback requirements or height restrictions, they change.
Yeah.
So it's like we need to understand exactly where it is, and then we can study it. We can do an assessment.
So let's say if someone wants to look at a property to purchase, but they want to make sure they can build something there. Mm-hmm. So they would have to get in touch with someone like you, for example, to tell them what can be built or if it can even be built there.
Exactly. And then we can basically look at it from an investment point of view to see how big you can build a unit. Good. And do we have enough lot to incorporate a design that will be feasible.
Right. How long would, let's say I have a client right now looking for a property and they want to build a garden suite. So for them to contact you and for you to get an answer to them, like, first of all, yes, it can be built. And what's the rough square footage that can be built? How long would that take?
Oh, that's like 5 business days.
Yeah, 5 minutes. You can figure that out and then let them know what the requirements would be. Perfect.
So it's a quick turnaround. It's not a big deal. Yeah.
Okay, amazing. And in terms of overall requirements that city has put in place for properties, I know we have fire, setback requirements. Let's just go over all these requirements so that we have a good understanding. So we got all the requirements that we have. is fire and emergency requirements, footprint and landscaping requirements, setback and height restrictions, and there are some other requirements. So Pasha is going to walk us through all of them.
Yeah, thank you. So let's just start with the FLS, the fire life safety requirements for this garden suite. Basically, what you need to understand is the location, the positioning of the garden suite is very important, right? There are 3 limitations when it comes to that. So 45 meters is a maximum distance you can have from the right-of-way or the public street to the entrance of the suite. So that 45 meters is a hard requirement. So the closer you can have it to the street, the better off you are, because it depends on the size of the primary building, the depth of the lot.
Yeah. If there's a house at the front and you're putting this at the back, there's going to be from the front entrance of that garden, it's going to be maximum of 45.
Maximum of 45 to the fronting street or the right-of-way, right? Okay. And that's because when the emergency crew arrives, they don't have to travel more than 45 meters to get to the incident, right?
Okay.
And there are 2 other requirements complementary to this regulation. You need to have an unobstructed path of travel with a dimension of 1 meter in width and 2.1 meter in height for the emergency crew to basically get to the garden suite. So it's like a passageway. Imagine a clearance envelope of a 1 meter wide by 2.1 meter height.
So for example, in let's say downtown core that we have homes close to each other, and you got, let's say, another house, maybe 2 meters away. So you're gonna have a minimum if it's a mutual driveway, so 1 meter, and the height is gonna be 2 meters. So if there's let's say if you got a carport and it's less than 2 meters, you got to get rid of that.
If you have an overhang that encroaching into that, that's an issue. But there are some exceptions to this law, because you can have some encroachments of the meter, gas meter or hydrometer into that envelope, which is not a deal breaker.
Good.
So this is the first requirement, FLS safety issue that needs to be complied with. So I will just go to the next one here. So the next one, it would be the footprint and landscaping requirement.
Yeah.
So that basically determines the size of your garden suite, right? So the first one that we can just mention here is the 20%, not exceeding 20% of your overall area.
Right.
So if you're thinking of, let's say you have a 4,000 square feet land, a lot, so you cannot go over, 800. Yeah, 800 or something. But then that is basically exceeding the 65 meter maximum. So you got to be below 65 meter per level.
Right, got it.
So it's either the 65 meter or not exceeding the 40%, not 20%, or 40% of the rear yard.
Backyard. Okay.
Yeah, so in the backyard, when you want the separation between the house, you take the average, you calculate.
So where do you calculate, from the end of the structure?
From the end of the back of the house to the end of the property line.
Okay, so that 40%, overall 20%.
Yeah.
And
maximum,
regardless, it's going to be 65 meters, square meters per level.
Per level.
Oh, got it.
And you can do 2 levels. You can
Which is a lot, 65 square feet per level. That's amazing.
Exactly, especially if you have it in 2 levels, right? So that's for the footprint requirement.
While we're on the same topic, if there is a driveway, you cannot have a garage built next to it, can you, or no?
So if yes, you can have a garage for the garden suite. Also, so the garden suite, they do not require a parking space.
No, but if you want to build it, you can.
Optional?
Yeah. Would you be able to?
Yeah, you can. As long as you have the width to basically allow for that 1 meter passage, you can use the remaining for.
Let's just assume you have enough to go all the way back, but you build your 65 square meters, you can add another garage to it.
Yes.
Okay.
That's
wow.
correct.
That's amazing.
That's great. Landscaping requirement. That's pretty standard. If it depends on your frontage of the lot. If you have more than 6 meters, you need to have 50% of your lot. Landscape or softscape.
Which is the normal, anyone building a custom home in Toronto, they got to do frontage, 50% of the front of the yard in green space.
Yeah, or make it a permeable surface. So it's just for any surface water not to accumulate in the property.
Yeah.
And if it's less than 6 meters, that requirement reduces to 25%.
Okay, amazing.
Yeah.
So that's the townhomes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So another set of requirements that we can talk about today is the setbacks and height restriction.
Right.
So if you want to talk about setback, you can start from the back of the property. You need to have at least minimum of 1.5 meters setback from the rear lot line.
Yeah.
For the garden suite. On the sides, depending on the frontage of the property, it's usually 10% of the front of the lot.
Okay.
So if you have a, let's say, 20 meter, 5 or 6, let's say 6 meter frontage, 10% of that is 60 centimeter. So you need to have at least minimum of 60 centimeters setback from the side. Mm-hmm. And that increases to, that varies between 60 centimeter to 3 meters. So if you have a bigger frontage, you need to have a bigger setback, basically.
And setback from the side.
From the sides,
lines.
yeah.
Okay.
And there's another factor that you need to consider when you're positioning or locating your garden suite is the separation from the main house.
Got it.
So that depends on the height of the garden suite. So if you have a structure where the height is less than 4 meters, you need to have a 5 meter separation from the main residence. If it's higher than 4 meters, you need to increase that to 7.5 meters.
And what's the ratio between that?
Oh, the maximum that you can go up is basically 6 meters in 2 stories.
Right. Or you're going to go to a committee of adjustment or something to get that?
No. So these regulations are not really meant to be adjusted. So there is no, even if you go through committee of adjustment, because these are new bylaws.
So you can do it. So this is like if you want to build, let's say, what was it, 6 meters you said?
Yeah.
So you can go and build that, but you got to
have a 7.5 meter separation from the house.
What about the sidelines?
For sideline doesn't increase. So that depends on
the frontage.
Yeah, it's on the frontage, but then the minimum you can have from the back of the property is 1.5 meters.
Minimum is 1.5.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But the more you have in the back, you're adding more space to the backyard for that purpose. But that depends on the depth of your lot. So there are some limitations in that. Yeah. So that was for the setback requirements. And that was like there are other requirements that we can talk about, but these are like minor stuff. But these were the major requirements
ones
that we could touch base on.
And then the minor ones that let's just touch base on. One is the non-severable issues of the lot. So
exactly, you cannot have a separate deed. You cannot sell it separately. It's always part of the same property.
Yeah,
you're basically sharing the water, sewer, and the utilities and other services with the main house, but you can meter it separately.
Question I have is because I know, for example, in any area that you get a legal basement apartment, you get an address for that. For example, in Aurora, for example, the address is like 20 John Street. You will be 20A, unit A is up, 20B is downstairs. Would this be the same thing? Would it have its...
Yes, absolutely. And that is for the fire department to identify the unit, easily. So if you have a house with a finished legal basement, that unit will be designated by B because it's a basement, and then you can have the suite, and then you get a separate designation for the suite. So when they arrive on the scene, they know which unit they need to service.
So you would do the same for these as well?
Yeah, because after so basically, once you have the design development prepared, you go through the permit processing, and then you get your permit, you go through the construction, you do your required inspections through the construction, and once that's finished, you get your permit closed, they will issue a registration for the separate dwelling, that you can have a separate address, separate allotment for your garbage and all that.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. The other requirements we talked about for non-severability, parking, trees.
Right. Yeah, trees. Oh, that's very important, because if you have a tree trunk larger than 30 centimeters in the backyard, you need to plan it accordingly. So you're not allowed to cut any trees with the trunk larger than 30 centimeters.
Right.
For smaller trees, you can have a tree removal permit in place and do that. But for anything bigger, you need to basically plan your site accordingly, so you're not really getting to that type
and if
of
you
situation.
if you need to cut it, would they give you the permit, or you got to go to the permit?
That's a no-go. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah. And then the area. So another important factor to consider is you cannot have a garden suite bigger than your primary house.
So the primary house becomes a garden suite.
Exactly. And I think we started off with talking about the differences between the laneway suite, garden suites, and other ancillary structures. So one thing to consider is you cannot have more than one ancillary or accessory dwelling unit in your property. So if you have a laneway suite, you cannot have a garden suite as well. You have to pick between. Yeah. So that goes to you can have only one detached structure within your property.
Got it. So thank you for all this information. So these are the main components of what anyone should know about for garden suites. In terms of the process, can you walk us through the process? Let's say anyone wants to apply to get a garden suite built. Yeah. Walk us through the entire process and how a company like yourself would be able to help them along the process.
Yeah, absolutely. So we usually start with a site visit. Like we want to understand the parameters of the site, the location, the opportunities, and the expectation of the client. So we'll do the site visit first, and then we'll start our design development phase. So in design development, we usually work with the client to understand what they're expecting. Are they primarily looking into it as a rental property, or they want to use it for their extended family, or they want to actually use them for their children, to see what the usage of that is. Or it's a multi-purpose usage, so they don't know at the moment. We'll start with that program, and then we'll work our way through various consultation with the client to finalize the design. Once we have the design package ready and the client's approval, we'll send them through the permit application to the city for their review. Usually, the plan examiner, they have comments, they have suggestions, they have their own opinion. So we'll try to respect that. We'll try to incorporate as much we can with the consultation, again, with the clients, to make sure the changes are acceptable by them, or figure out a way to keep everybody happy. Yeah. Once we get the permit in place, then we can assist with providing construction support services by finding the right contractors, put a schedule together, assist them with everything that that involves the construction phase.
So you get the permit for them up to that phase, and then if they decide to use your services to build it, you can do that as well.
Exactly, we can provide that service as well. And then during the construction, we are obligated to do a periodic site visit to make sure that the construction is proceeding in accordance with the permit drawing. Got it. And that's basically...
So the permit process, how long does that take?
So the design development phase, depending on the complexity and the size of the project, varies, but it's usually the turnaround time is between 6 to 8 weeks.
6 to 8 weeks for that, and then how long does it take for the city to issue the permit?
So the review period now is somewhere between 4 to 8 weeks now.
4 to 8 weeks, and then construction of it roughly for something of let's say about
construction. If you
800 to 1,000
if you want to be generous, I would say.
Well, you got to be generous right now, like with
4 to 6 months.
4 to 6 months. Okay, okay. Because again, you got to keep in mind right now, like we got labor shortage, there's a lot of issues, so you don't want to rush that. Okay, so that's overall, and once that is done, they do a final inspection, and it's good to go, and then you can go and enjoy it.
They'll give you the key, and then you get your
There you go. It's like as if you're doing a PDI, and then you got a brand new unit. Well, Pasha, thanks a lot for coming. I know it was a very hot topic, because right now there's a lot of people looking into this issue. And again, anyone looking for more information, or they have a property that they want to find out whether or not they can build a garden suite on it, or what the requirements would be, don't hesitate to reach out to Pasha. Their company is, I would say, one of the most efficient ones that I know of. We're going to have all their information down below. And, we're going to also, if you can, use some of your literature that you prepared and have it for people to look at.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you can get more information there. And don't hesitate to reach out if any questions. And again, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you next time.
All right, take care.